and oak is $1,000 a cord. I think they were like $26,000. Saturdays I'm usually here 10 to 12 hours. And that was like $1,200. The business name is Phoenix Firewood, and my name is CJ Barnett. It got started, kind of a long story, when I was 10, 12 years old. I lived in Georgia. Lots of trees everywhere, everywhere's a forest there pretty much. So my dad and I would go cut and clear people's just fallen trees and stuff. Just do it every now and again for neighbors and stuff. I would pay for scout camp or whatever summer activity I was doing there. And then when I moved down here, I worked for a landscaper. And that landscaper, he would let me keep that wood and he would help me split it and I would sell it. When I was 18, I went on a mission for my church. I went to Zimbabwe. While I was there for 2 years, we would do service projects for the locals. Like we would go walk, cut down trees, and then we'd bring it back to their homes because that's what they used to cook with. And then I came back to Arizona, just kind of picked it up. It's just something that I've done, and I've always been around it, and I enjoy it.
Did you jump right into this lot, or did you start like from your house just selling firewood like on the street, or what did that process look like?
Before my mission, I sold out of, when I was in high school, I sold out of the landscaper's property. And then when I got back, there was a guy, an old farmer down, we call it the Lehigh area here in Mesa. He had cut down a ton of orange trees for the 202 to come through the 202 freeway. And then so I took that whole pile during a winter and I sold it. Split it and sold it, gave him some of the money. And then I met a tree trimmer who was at this lot, who I was getting wood from. And then we kind of teamed up, and we're still teamed up. And I started with the one lot over there, then I graduated to both lots, and yeah, that's kind of how that started.
And then how long have you been in this spot here?
I think about 4 or 5 years. I started with the other lot over there. That's a dirt lot. That's where I store all the already split processed wood. And then I would say a year ago, I got both sides, and I work out of both sides. On one side, that's kind of the challenge here in Arizona is in the valley. Real estate's expensive, so I have this lot, and then there's another building in between where I have the other lot.
How do you get your logs? Are you going and getting them, or are people bringing them here? What's that look like?
So a little bit of both. It depends on the type of wood. I offer, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of wood. The wood that you kind of see around me, this is all stuff that I get from local tree trimmers. Instead of taking it to the dump, they'll bring it. I just say, hey, it's got to be cut. I just give them the code of the gate, and they come and they dump it instead of paying, it's like $40 a ton to dump it. So they cut down one big tree, it's gonna save them $400, they drop it here. The juniper I get from northern Arizona, and that gets brought down to me already split. I buy it, already split. Farmers and ranchers hate it. It's bad for the elk population, bad for the cattle. It takes away a lot of grassland, so sometimes Game and Fish will actually pay people to take it down. So it's pretty easy to get. It's in some places an invasive species. So, and then I'll get oak from Sonoyta, Arizona, which is southern Arizona, pretty close to the Mexican border. The only other species I didn't talk about would be mesquite, and that's actually a local desert plant here. It's really popular. It's actually the hardest wood that I have. It's really popular for cooking. You can combine it with like juniper and you get a longer burn. But I get that from landscapers as well, or sometimes I'll buy it.
Can you go through the process of, so when you get a log, how long are they here for before you split it? Do any of them have to dry out? And then what does the splitting look like?
So I get them dropped off here. Sometimes I'll have to cut them with the chainsaw to get them the right size. I like to split them when the wood is still wet. That's ideal. It creates less waste. And a lot of species of wood are actually easier to split when they're wet with my machine. So I split them here. I take them to the other side of the lot and I let them dry a minimum of 4 months. I prefer closer to a year, but in Arizona it's so hot and dry, the wood will dry in about 4 months. There's a lot of guys that are down here from, like where you guys are from, Michigan or the northern United States. They think I'm crazy when I say it's been 6 months, it's dried for 6 months. They're like, no, this is not gonna work. I'm like, oh, trust me, it will. It's just difference in weather. There's no humidity here, so that moisture gets sucked out pretty quick. So it's here for a minimum of 4 months, maximum of about a year.
Can you tell us how you sell them? Are they sold in bundles? Are you selling them direct to consumer? Are they going to other businesses?
Most of my clients or customers are residential. I have 1 or 2 consistent commercial clients. Like I sell to a KOA in Tucson. They buy, it's like a campsite trailer park type thing. They buy bundles. So they'll buy 650 bundles from me at a time. I'll take it down there. But for the most part, yeah, it's just residential. They come pick up or I go deliver, and it's sold by the cubic foot. We call it a cord. So I sell a wheelbarrow, which is 8 cubic feet, and 16 wheelbarrows in a cord. I'll sell a quarter cord, a half cord. And for reference, a half cord is like an 8-foot truck bed, full, stacked in there. Yeah, you can get as much or as little as you want, really.
And then earlier you mentioned about people bringing the logs down here. Are you paying for those, or is that completely free?
So if I'm getting it from local landscapers, again, it depends on the wood. Like pine, for some reason in the valley, pines are dying left and right. I don't know if it's the hot summers, it's not getting enough water, bugs, I don't know what's doing it, but I could have, 4 of these lots filled up with pine, right? So people will drop pine off for free. I'll pay for mesquite to get it dropped off. It just depends on the landscaper, if it's worth their time, they'll just say, hey, they're based out of here and the dump's not too far away, so it's just easier to come down here. But the answer is a little bit of both. But anything like juniper, mesquite, oak, I've got to pay for that. Pine, I get for free. The eucalyptus or sisu, those are some other hardwoods that I have. I mix those with pine. Those I can most of the time get for free. Sometimes I got to go pick them up. Just depends.
What's your most popular seller?
It's definitely what I call the hardwood mix. It's about 20% pine and the rest hardwoods, like that sisu that I mentioned. We have ash, we got Chinese elm, we got that eucalyptus. I like to combine it with the pine, and it sells really well because it's easy for people to start, and that hardwood makes it burn a long time.
Being from Michigan, are people buying this and then using it for their fireplace? Are they using it to cook? Like a lot of the year here, it's very hot. Why would you buy firewood?
Yeah, so I think in Arizona, people are more buying it because they like it. Sometimes they're heating their houses, but there probably only was a 2-month period this winter. I mean, every winter is different, but this winter where you really even needed it. And even then, you only need it in the mornings. The majority is not heating their houses. It's just for ambiance or fun or in the backyard. Or like I've got people that I'll sell 3 or 4 cords to a year. They burn in their front driveway every day. Every day after work, they just come, the neighbors stop by, they're drinking beer after work, whatever. So it's more often for fun or for cooking than it is for heating your house.
What do you do for your advertising? Like, are you doing social media? Is it word of mouth? What does that look like? So
I'm really bad at doing the social media thing. I try to keep that up. I just don't have a very good knack for it. It's something I'm trying to get better at as a business owner. I would say 90% of my business comes from just Google Maps. I have a terrible website and I don't do the, what do they call it, SEO, the search engine optimization thing. I don't do that very well, but I've actually just hired someone to build me a website and start helping me with that. And then the rest is just Craigslist. I don't get tons of business from Facebook Marketplace. I get some business from. Really, I think my biggest thing is Google Maps, and I just try to get as many reviews as I can.
What does the future look like for your business? Like, how do you plan on expanding or growing?
Yeah, so far every year I'm selling about 20 to 25% more. I'm growing every year. So right now I'm just trying to split enough and to outgrow this space. And after I outgrow this space, then I need to find a bigger space. Just try to stack higher, as high as the city will let me stack it. So I just want to keep growing and I have limited hours during the weekday especially. So I want to be able to hire someone to be there for longer hours. That would help a lot. That's something that needs to happen next year. When I say next year, I mean next winter. And then just improving my visibility on Google, getting a better, I'm gonna be spending some decent money on getting just better search optimization and getting higher on that and getting a better website and stuff like that.
How many hours a week do you think you put in for this business?
During the winter, I'm putting in 40 hours a week. I'm here on weekdays from probably 3:30 to 6, and then after that I go on deliveries. I usually get home 7:30 or 8 o'clock, and then Saturdays I'm usually here 10 to 12 hours, and Sundays I'm just at home. During the summer though, it's probably only 3 days a week. I'm just splitting. There's no selling going on. It's 110 degrees. So I'm just splitting.
Can you tell us a little bit about the equipment that you might need to run a business like this?
Yeah, so let's bring you over here to where I started off. Super easy to start a business because it's so cheap. I mean, the first machine we started with was this, I call it the single splitter. It's sitting right over here. As you can tell, I don't use it anymore, but that was like 1,200 bucks. I paid a welder to make a few improvements, so in total probably 1,500 bucks. And that's where I started. It takes a long time. It's just a hard thing it's just a slow process with that one. And then I upgraded eventually to this machine here. This machine, company out of New York makes these. So this, as opposed to splitting once, it'll split 6 times, and it kind of filters out the wood as it goes as well. And one of the biggest things was it's got a log lift. So all you gotta do is, if you wanna see on this other side here, you just roll the log on this lift here, and it lifts it up, which, if you're gonna be here for 8 hours working, that's a huge energy saver and a huge time saver. And you got another guy working with you, you can just stack here. So that's great. Over here we got the ditch witch. I would probably prefer to have a bigger one, but because I don't have a lot of space, It's kind of nice because it can weave in and out of stuff. This does the work of 4 guys. You know, it's crazy. Like it's a good machine. And the last but not least is the conveyor belt. Even though it's only a 12-foot conveyor belt, it stands up about 12 feet. It doesn't seem like it saves a lot of time, but surprisingly it does. Like when I'm loading my truck up for deliveries or I'm loading trailers up, I bring it up and I park this right next to the pile of wood, and I can just sit there on my knees, or I can bend over and I can just throw it, or I can use the skid steer and dump it in. It saves tons of time. In the last couple of years, the upgrades I've made, and it's all about just saving labor time. Wood just takes time. Just takes a lot of time to process and split.
And then with these machines here, how much have you invested in some of this equipment?
So these 2 together I bought at the same time. They're from the same company. That was in, I want to say 2021 I bought them, I think, or 2022 or something like that. I think they were like $26,000 for the both of them delivered here.
And then what are some other expenses outside of the equipment?
It's really mostly labor. I mean, during the summer I spend a lot of money on ice, but it's really mostly labor. I mean, I pay guys $20 an hour. That's $200 a day for a 10-hour day on Saturdays, or during the summer when we're spending all day here. That's my biggest expense. I mean, I think my expenses are, I think some firewood companies would look at this and think it's ridiculous, but I probably spend $150 to $200 per cord to produce, which needs to be a lot less to be more profitable. I mean, there's companies in Arizona that are bigger than me. It costs them $60 a cord, right, to produce. That's because they have better equipment and more room, because I've got to move things around a lot because of the lack of room that I have. So those are my expenses. Those are my main ones. Labor and ice.
The ice is for what?
During the summer, I feel like it's kind of a joke, but I feel like I'm buying a ton of ice. Like I think during the summer, I almost spend as much money on ice as I do on gas, you know, because we got coolers full. When we get really hot, I like to put my arms in ice, and then you got another cooler with the ice and the drinks, and you go through what, 3 or 4 bags a day. So
pretty much just doing ice baths out here.
Yeah, exactly. That was an old SWAT guy taught me that because when he was on a call, they would dip their arms in ice and it would cool them off, and it really works pretty well. You can feel the coolness running through your body when you do that. It just helps you stay out here for 8 to 10 hours, you know. I used to produce everything over there, and that yard is dirt. There's no concrete on it, right? So the waste that would come off of splitting, it took so much time to clean because we had to rake everything. We had to put it in wheelbarrows and then take it somewhere else and pile it up. And then after a while, you'd pile that waste up. You got to put it in the trailer, and it's just like, so what I did is I moved the production over here. At first it seemed a little counterintuitive because I got to move it over there. But really what happened was it actually turned out to be a lot more efficient, because when it's splitting through the splitter here, it's kind of designed for the small stuff to drop. And so what we're able to do is just, as we go, just sweep it right out and pile it right over there. I've gotten people to actually come pick up some of my trash for free. They use it for their garden beds and stuff. So, and using this tractor to move the waste around and to move all the wood around, nothing is getting dirty. So I'm not having to clean it. The wood's not getting dirty. I'm able to separate the waste. I'm able to move these piles around really quickly, and I'm able to move this around really easily. So I can bring a trailer in here, we load the trailer. So we're not actually touching the wood more times. We're actually touching it less times than splitting it and piling it over there on the dirt side. So that was a huge thing. It saved me tons of time. And the second thing that I did to get more efficient was with this machine specifically. So when you're splitting, the wood comes off here and it piles up here, and eventually it'll just push itself back as it's going, and it'll continue to pile up. And then I would pile it up a little bit more and keep going. I only hire guys on Saturdays, and during the days during the weekdays I'd be the one splitting. So I just pile it up, and then on Saturdays I've had guys load the trailer. So that was not the best way to do it, because it took so long to separate the good wood from kind of the scrappy wood. It took so much time. Like I was doing 2 trailer loads in a day, where I had spent that week splitting wood. All the wood was already split. And then after I changed it, what I changed was, instead of spending the week splitting, I spend the week getting ready for Saturday, basically. So I make sure everything is cut to size, I make sure everything is clean, and I make sure everything is stacked, ready to go. So what I do is I have a guy loading, and I have a guy here throwing the wood in the trailer. And if I can't get 2 guys that day, then usually the guy loading will do both jobs, in which it really doesn't slow us down that much. When that happens, all the waste, it produces less waste because it doesn't clog the machine. And 2, we can just push the waste right out, and we don't spend any time cleaning. We just stop every now and again for like 5 minutes, push everything over, and then at the end of the day I just get that and I just push it up in the pile and it's done. We're able to produce what I can do with 2 guys used to take me 4 guys to do, so it cut my labor literally in half. And it was weird. What I did is me and my dad figured that out, because I'm here every day, I'm doing my thing every day, but like that's another thing that I think is a good idea. Get a fresh pair of eyes over here, whether it's your wife, your dad, you know, or your friend, whoever. My dad and I sat here and talked about it, and he talked about the, you know, these, he's like, man, this is just inefficient. I'm like, well, this is just how it is. You know, this is how I do it. Well, he's like, well, let's just do it a different way. And I'm like, okay. So we try it, and like, I was shocked. It seems weird, like not splitting all week, but I can get more done splitting one day and then spending the week preparing. So it's like, that's, I think I've almost doubled my capacity, my 1 day capacity with less labor. And that's less me doing less work and my employees having less employees for less time. The smallest unit that I sell is a bundle. I stick it in here, it's about 1 cubic foot, and then we wrap it, and that's, depending on who we're selling it to, $4 to $7. It depends on if we're delivering it or not. And then the unit up from that are these wheelbarrows. They're about 8 cubic feet. I've got to say about because it's hard to be exact with firewood. It's probably our most popular. Just people going camping. They're going camping or they're buying for their backyard. Just, you know, guys like to get this for date nights and stuff. I don't know, girls. It seems like women like firewood more than men. They like fires more than men. I used to think it was the other way around, but now I think women like it more than men. And then after that, I sell it by the cord. So 4 wheelbarrows is a quarter cord, 8 is a half cord, and then obviously a full cord is 16. And then this is what we call a face cord. It's actually a quarter or a stack. It's a 4x4 stack. It seems like every state does it different. Sometimes they call it Joe cords or face cords, or I don't know. I've researched it 100 times and I feel like everybody does it differently in whatever state you're in. But in Arizona, what we like to do is we have a 4x4 stack instead of a quarter cord. It's a little bit less wood. You know, in a day of like Toyota Tacomas, you know, or Chevy Colorados that have smaller beds, you can't necessarily fit a quarter cord, you can't fit a half cord. So we do a 4x4 instead of a quarter, and a 4x8 stack instead of a half a cord. So it's smaller measurements in a day and age where we have smaller truck beds.
How much does that go for?
This is the hardwood mix. It's the 20% pine I was talking about earlier, and the rest hardwoods. That's $120. And then a quarter cord is $160, and a full cord is $550. And now that's for this. The Juniper and the Mesquite, they're $800 per cord, $400 for a half a cord, and $50 for a wheelbarrow. And oak is $1,000 a cord. A lot of people from the northern United States look at that and they're like, what the crap? Like, that's insane. But I mean, it's hard to get. We got to get it from other places. Oak doesn't really grow here in the valley. It doesn't even grow that much in northern Arizona. I can always tell a Midwesterner when they come to buy wood. They're like, holy cow, that's so expensive. Like, yeah, it is. I mean, the thing is if it's a company in Arizona that's legit, has a website, and is on Google, I can pretty much tell you I'm cheaper than that. Like the bigger companies, there's 3 of them that I know of in the valley, the main big guys. They're selling a cord of oak for like $1,200, $1,300 bucks. Wow. And they're selling 100 plus cords. This is all my wood for next year. So I stack it. I stack the first row, which anyone that knows firewood is gonna know how inefficient that is. But stacking it takes up about 30 to 40% less room. So I don't have that much room. So I stack the first row, I'm gonna stack it all the way down, and I'll stack the first 3 rows going this way, and then I'll pile on top of it, just so I have more room. And that way it's not putting so much pressure on the fence. For a good reference, so this is 16 foot by 6 foot. It's about a cord and a quarter. That's what almost a cord of wood looks like right there. It's a really inefficient way to do it, but I don't really have another choice until I get more land.
Is this like what you would be doing during the week then?
So usually what I do is I have I bring the dump trailer back and I dump it. I dump it until it gets like over here, and then I spend a whole Saturday just stacking it. If you're stacking by yourself, I can stack a quarter and a quarter in about 40 minutes. Not trying to go really fast, just at an easy pace. During the summer, probably 50 because you got to take more water breaks. If you have 2 or 3 guys, it's like a 1 + 1 = 3 scenario where, like, you know, you got a guy on his knees handing you wood and you're stacking. So it's much faster with more people. So I don't do it by myself unless I have absolutely nothing else to do, because it's so much faster with more people.
Like, are the only benefits to the different varieties in wood just like smell and burn time and things like that?
A lot of it is personal preference, and some of it is, you know, there's actually like, I don't know if you want to call it scientific reasons. So pine, grab a piece of pine here. Pine is a light color and light in weight. There's a density scale called the Jenka scale, and the pine that we get here, it's Aleppo pine for the most part. It's a 550-ish pounds, where you get a piece of eucalyptus and it's, you know, it's like 1,900 pounds, and that's measuring how dense and how hard it is. And then you got your Mesquite, which is 2,500 pounds of force, right? So Mesquite will burn long and hot, and it makes a really good flavor for different kinds of meat. The disadvantage is it takes a long time for Mesquite to get going. That's why with the eucalyptus that I have in here, it also takes a long time. It burns even longer. It's not quite as hard as Mesquite, but it burns, for some reason, it burns longer than Mesquite. That's why it's really important to put the pine in there. The pine gets it going, gets it started, gets a good flame, and then you throw the hardwood on there, because pine burns really fast, right? And one disadvantage of pine is it puts creosote in your chimney, which isn't bad unless you're not maintaining your chimney, right? So I try to mix this mix just right to where it starts up quick, so it's easy to burn, and it burns for a long time. So, and this is my most popular because it's the cheapest. And then people that like Juniper really are paying for the smell. It crackles really nicely and it smells, like I said, a Christmas tree. So people here go crazy for that ambiance. I mean, they really enjoy that smell and that crackle. I think my hardwood mix, which is quite a bit cheaper, burns longer and produces more heat. But that's why I try to convince people to mix the Mesquite and the Juniper together, because they're the same price. And they make a really good mix. You still get that smell. And then oak is, you cook with it as well. It's a different flavor than Mesquite. A lot of people prefer it. Most of the bigger firewood companies here, they would have like pecan and almond. You know, you can get that from, there's a lot of orchards here in Arizona, and there's a lot of orchards in California. We can get wood here for not too expensive. I just don't have the room. So for deliveries, I pretty much deliver anywhere. It's just a matter if you're willing to pay for it or not. Like my minimum delivery is a quarter cord or 4 wheelbarrows, and the minimum charge is $50. Usually I'll stack it for that. If it's a half cord, it's gonna be $75. If it's easy to stack, I'll stack it. If I got a wheelbarrow way into the backyard, it's an extra $25, $50, depending on the difficulty of where I gotta take it. Some people, I really gotta weave around pools and stuff to take it back, so I charge them a little extra for that, but it's gonna be, usually it lands between $50 and $75 to deliver.
Do you ever use like an axe?
So the only time I use an axe, I got a big maul with an axe on one side and like a sledgehammer on the other. The only time I use that is when it gets stuck in the splitter, which sometimes happens. So you got to get on top of the splitter and, you know, start hitting it and get it knocked out of there. So I don't use an axe. I probably would be a lot skinnier and more muscular if I did use an axe, but I mean, I don't think you get more than, because this eucalyptus here, I mean, you can't split it with an axe. It's impossible. It's such a hard wood that it's like, it literally just bounces right off. It's like, it feels like concrete when you're dealing with it. So this is I call it the scraps pile. So I advertise this on Facebook Marketplace as free because I can't sell it. And like, if they need kindling, they can come grab some kindling pieces I just gave away. So what I do is, because it's worthless to me, I'll give it away for free. And I would say 8 out of 10 people that come pick up the free stuff are really excited about it, and I can get a review out of them. So because I can't make money off of it, I use it to get reviews, and reviews help a ton. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. Don't give anything away. If there's something that's not useful, try to make a use out of it somehow.
And then do you have 3 tips of advice for any other entrepreneurs out there?
When your thing goes on Google, there's all types of people that call you, offering you stuff. Like for a small business owner, there's so much stuff you can buy that isn't necessarily helpful. One thing I did, I paid like, I don't know, it was probably $200. Oh, we manage your Google stuff. And it's like a company, you pay them $200. Great, I don't want to have to get on there and change hours and stuff. And they didn't do anything. I mean, they did what would have taken me 20 minutes once a month maybe. So just, if someone's offering you a product or a service, make sure you really do your research. Like this website group that's building my website and helping me with that, I listened to them, asked them a bunch of questions, watched a bunch of YouTube videos on that subject, and made sure what they were saying matched up, and see if I could do it myself. And then I decided I've learned my lesson, do more research, and before I spent money on it. I guess the other one is you gotta have a goal, because if you don't have a goal, it just feels like a hand-to-mouth business, Like the first 2 years I was at this location, I wasn't keeping track of sales, I wasn't keeping track of expenses, and I didn't know how I was doing. I didn't know if I was improving or not. Then I started doing that, and I could set a goal. If I didn't meet the goal, like last winter, I didn't meet my goal at all, I pinpointed 3 things why I didn't, and this year I changed it. And I say we got 2 months of the selling season left, and I'm already way ahead of where I was at the end of the selling season, this year over last year, just by switching up those 3 things. Third one would be efficiency, especially for firewood business. I mean, but I guess this is for any business. Like, efficiency always has to be top of mind. It's a lot of times do or die. It could cost me the difference of hundreds of dollars per cord to produce, depending on my efficiency.